Do with me.
Honey, I can't deal with this. It's times I want to destroy him. And this man just told me you're trying to give me 13 years. Jeffrey, I hate you, I hate you.
Jeffrey Dahmer was a notorious serial killer and offender who unleashed terror in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal or the Milwaukee Monster, Dahmer confessed to the gruesome acts of killing, mutilating, and even consuming 17 young men over a horrifying 13-year period. Dahmer's reign of horror finally came crashing down when Tracy Edwards, a man slated to be his next victim, managed to escape and alert the police. Following Edwards, the officers arrived at Dahmer's apartment, unearthing shocking evidence of his heinous acts. Dahmer was swiftly arrested, and a thorough search of his apartment uncovered even more horrifying items.
Removed boxes and boxes of body parts, evidence of what appears to be a psychopathic massacre. Authorities also took out a barrel of what they think is acid. Police are reluctant to reveal exactly how many victims there might be, but knowledgeable investigators say it could be more than a half a dozen.
In 1992, he was convicted of 15 homicides in Wisconsin, earning him 15 life sentences. Another life sentence was added for a homicide he committed in Ohio back in 1978. Dahmer exhibited little remorse, and even the families of his victims tore into him during the proceedings.
You ever stop to think that this is someone's brother, nephew, uncle, cousin, grandson, or just someone's friend?
You almost destroyed me, but I refuse to let you destroy me. I will carry on.
You destroyed me of the family, and I hope you go to hell.
This is how you act when you are out of control. I don't want to ever see my mother have to go through this again. Never, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, I hate you, motherfucker. I hate you. This is out of control. Don't with me, Jeffrey. You got
I didn't ever want freedom. Frankly, I wanted for myself. This was a case to tell the world that I did what I did not for reasons of hate. I hated no one. I knew I was sick or evil or both. Now I believe I was sick. I tried and failed and created a Holocaust. And if I could give my life right now to bring their loved ones back, I would do it. I am so very sorry. I deserve whatever I get because of what I have done.
On November 28, 1994, Dahmer met his end when Christopher Scarver, another inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, beat him to death. On May 14, 2022, an 18-year-old white supremacist, Payton Jenden, unleashed gunfire in a predominantly black Tops-friendly market store in New York. Tragically, 10 black individuals lost their lives, and 3 others were injured before he was apprehended. Now, in court, family members of the victims expressed their sentiments directly to him.
My name is Barbara Massey. I'm Catherine Massey's sister. You killed my sister. Cat was an aunt. She was a great aunt. She was a cousin. She was a friend. Cat said she was a committee of one. There's nothing Cat wouldn't do for people. I want personally to choke you and leave my fingerprints on your neck because it was unnecessary. You leave 200 miles to come to Buffalo. You don't even know any people. I want to choke. You better stake those places. You better say, cops, thank y'all for protecting me because I will hurt you so bad. You have made me sick. You got my family crying. I miss my sister every day. You don't like people. Man, you don't know a damn thing about people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids.
As a family member of one of the victims is speaking, a supposed family member wanted to let Payton know how he felt.
We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
Luckily, the police were able to calm the situation. Now, it's Payton's turn to speak.
I'm very sorry for all the pain I forced the victims and their families to suffer through. I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate. I know I can't take it back, but I wish I could. And I don't want anyone to be inspired by me and what I did.
You don't need none of that shit. You don't need that shit.
Eventually, the judge reads her sentence. Payton was handed a life sentence in prison, likely bringing a sense of relief to the family members of the victims.
The damage you have caused is too great, and the people you have hurt are too valuable to this community. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again. It is the judgment of this court for your conviction under the first count of the indictment, a domestic act of terrorism motivated by hate in the first degree, an A1 felony, that you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Tommy Lindcell was an infamous American serial killer, known for his atrocious crimes and facing charges for multiple murders in Texas. While officially convicted of one murder, authorities suspect he might be linked to a staggering 22 killings. Interestingly, Sells himself admits uncertainty about the exact number, but boldly claims responsibility for ending over 70 lives.
How many people have you killed?
Lord, I don't know.
10?
Yeah.
20?
Probably.
30?
It's up there.
50?
But see, I'm not Billy the Kid making notches on my holster, so I know it's been a lot.
Sells offered a twisted justification for his brutal slayings, openly admitting that he enjoyed killing because it gave him a thrill.
First time I killed somebody, it was such a rush. It was just like that shot of dope. Every time I did it, it was that rush again, and I started chasing that high.
He also attempted to justify why he targeted children.
I some get yes.
Now, why would that happen?
I didn't want them to live through the pain I lived.
Sells met his end on April 3, 2014, as he faced execution by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary. He stopped moving after less than a minute, and the official declaration of death came after 13 minutes. Zer Duffy boasts a record of drug-related offenses spanning 5 years, and he's become a familiar face at the Lorraine Municipal Court in Ohio. Judge Raymond Ewers, quite frankly, is tired of seeing him.
The 8 cases you had in this courtroom showed to me that you were a potential menace to society.
Despite Judge Ewers granting him several chances, Duffy finds himself back in court today, arrested for violating his parole, and this isn't a minor misdemeanor. The 25-year-old led deputies on a high-speed car chase while they attempted to arrest him on a separate warrant. When the chase finally came to a halt, officers discovered substantial quantities of fentanyl and heroin, along with a Ruger SR-40 pistol. Not surprisingly, Assistant Prosecutor Donna Freeman is adamant about getting Duffy off the streets, and she's aiming for the jugular.
The state would ask that you sentence this defendant to the maximum amount of time allowed by law. He has been involved in a number of offenses involving guns, drug trafficking, high-speed chases with the police. He has no regard for society.
Duffy seizes the opportunity to make one last appeal to the judge, and considering his history of violent drug-related crimes, you won't believe how he behaves.
They just made me look like a monster. The person they just made me out to be, I'm scared of that person that they just tried to make me out to be. You heard I was doing good out there. I was not selling. I wasn't doing none of that. I wasn't. I was trying to get my life on track, man. And this man just told me you're trying to give me 13 years.
In a surprising departure from his notorious reputation, the habitual criminal breaks down and weeps like a baby in a performance that could almost be considered for an Oscar nomination. Even Judge Ewers appears entertained by this unexpected outburst, though fortunately, he remains skeptical and isn't swayed by the dramatic display.
Driving that car the other day when the police were chasing you.
I was driving.
Well, I think I've had plenty of time to observe how you would behave after you left prison. I hung significant prison time over your head because the 8 cases you had in this courtroom showed to me that you were a potential menace to society.
The judge keeps on talking, making it clear he's fed up with giving Duffy any more chances. As Duffy's long sentence gets announced, his dramatic act turns into a total lack of respect. He even turns his back on the judge. You can see it all in his lawyer's face, pure disappointment. The lawyer shoots him a warning look and says a few quiet words, but Duffy just brushes it off. Check out how he turns and locks eyes with the court camera. No tears, just a determined stare. Then he swings back to the bench with a question for the judge. But here's the crazy part. Duffy becomes belligerent and starts arguing about the sentence, even dropping the F-bomb on Judge Ewers.
So you just gave me 13 years.
13 years and 4 months.
After 3s, 4s, and 5s, though.
That's
How
right.
is this a justice system, right?
It's justice because I gave you more opportunities. I'm talking right now.
After getting sentenced, Duffy was taken away. But wait, the saga isn't over for him. The 13 years he got was just for violating his parole. Later on, he faced another round of sentencing for the car chase, drugs, and firearms charges, bagging himself an extra 22 and 2 years in federal prison. Looks like he'll have loads of time to practice those acting skills behind bars. Gary Ridgeway, famously known as the Green River Murderer, faced multiple murder charges in Washington for the heinous killings of at least 48 people, with a primary focus on prostitutes and young runaways. His troubled upbringing, marked by violent conflicts between his parents and his association with prostitutes, ultimately led him down a dark path of abduction, murder, and disposing of victims in the Green River. Despite the appalling nature of Ridgeway's crimes, his behavior during the legal proceedings was equally shocking. In 2003, he was arrested, pleaded guilty, and received a life sentence in prison.
The 48 women listed in the state's second amended information. I picked prostitutes as my victims because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught. Is that true?
Yes. And Mr. Ridgeway, is it your desire to plead guilty to the 48 charges of aggravated in the first degree because you believe that you are guilty of each of those offenses?
Yes.
The courtroom was filled with emotion as the victims' relatives told him what they thought about him.
You had said your memory, when it comes to all of the women you took, was gone. Our memory is not. In your words, you said that they didn't mean anything to you, but she meant everything to us.
She was a mother, she was a wife, she was a sister, and we miss her.
I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel.
He's gonna go to hell, and that's where he belongs.
Amidst the overwhelming emotions, a Christian father named Robert Rule, who had tragically lost his daughter Linda Jane to Ridgeway, did something different.
To live up to what I believe, and that is what God says to do, and that's to forgive. And he doesn't say to forgive just certain people, he says to forgive all. So you are forgiven, sir.
This act of forgiveness from Rule moved Ridgeway to tears, marking the only time he displayed any emotion in court. This young man, 19-year-old Lindy Jones, is currently facing murder charges in South Carolina for the killing of 18-year-old Willie Antwine Fields in August 2019. Following investigations, both Lindy Jones and his younger brother Jalen Jones were taken into custody. Now, in court, Angela Fields, the mother of the victim, has a message for Lindy.
I just want to let you know what they took from me. They took away my only child.
Her husband, Willie Clay Fields, was providing comfort, but suddenly he couldn't endure the pain anymore.
It's so hard.
Officers eventually managed to separate him from Lindy. Eventually, Lindy was given a 35-year prison sentence, while his brother Jalen received a 6-year sentence in juvenile prison. Cletus Robbins Jr., a guy known for challenging the judge's authority, had a tough upbringing in Oakwood. Raised in a broken home, he ended up in the wrong crowd, involved in petty crimes and vandalism. One night, he and his gang attempted a jewelry store break-in. Unaware they were being watched by the police, their heist went wrong as the alarm alerted the police. A high-speed chase followed, leading to their capture after a crash. Cletus faced charges for burglary, theft, kidnapping, assault, and evading arrest. The trial portrayed him as a dangerous criminal, with witnesses sharing their terrifying experiences. The jury found Cletus guilty on all charges. During his sentencing, the assistant Commonwealth attorney instructed him to only speak to his attorney, following normal court rules. But Robbins had something to say about that.
Hey, now none of that. Hey, none of that. Now just calm down.
Yeah, you calm down.
You take it easy.
Stand up. up there on that side, please. Settle down, please.
Your ass in court here.
Listen, buddy, I'm too old for this.
Hey, I'm too old for this too.
The judge then issues a severe sentence, locking him up for a maximum of 25 years. But Robbins wasn't finished. He still had more to say. Robbins displayed utter disrespect by spitting on the prosecuting attorney, an act that went without additional charges. Despite his courtroom misconduct, his original 25-year sentence remains in effect. On May 24, 2013, 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez tragically suffered brutal abuse and was killed by his mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Izaro Aguirre, who believed Gabriel was gay. In court, prosecutors emphasized the extensive injuries inflicted upon Gabriel and advocated for the maximum sentence. They presented witnesses, including Gabriel's teacher, to testify against the accused.
Are you sure that that's what really happened? And then he did eventually tell me, and he was like really angry, and he said, well, it's because my mom shot me in the face with a BB gun.
I know I'm not alone in hoping that they experience the same abuse in their lifetime and worse. They are evil people for what they did. I don't assign number 28 to another student because I feel that it's only his number now. And it's a way for me to honor him in my classroom.
Now, it's the medical examiner's turn to address the court.
To make sure I got all the BBs, I had to take the body back into the x-ray room on the second day, fluoroscope the whole body to make sure there weren't any more metallic particles in the body.
Subsequently, it was Gabriel's family members' turn to express their sentiments in court. Gabriel's grandfather stepped forward to testify.
He had swore that he was going to bring Gabriel back, and he did it. I don't know what he started talking about. We had to go to court one of these days, let him come home. And I promised that. Okay.
Despite the defense's earnest attempts, the jury pronounced Pearl and her boyfriend guilty. Prior to delivering the sentence, Judge George G. Lely took the opportunity to share his thoughts with the convicted killers.
The conduct was horrendous, inhumane, and nothing short of evil. It is unimaginable, the pain that this child probably endured. Both, in the middle of the night, you wake up and you think of the injuries that you subjected this poor young man, this poor 7-year-old, and that it tortures you.
Eventually, the judge read their sentence.
Defendant Pearl Cynthia Fernandez entered a plea in the first degree and further admitted the special circumstance of intentional murder by torture, that for the crime of murder in the first degree committed under the special circumstance that the murder was intentional and involved the infliction of torture, defendant Isario Aguirre shall be put to death within the walls of the California State Prison at San Quentin.
Pearl received a life sentence without the possibility of parole, while Isauro was sentenced to death. Despite appeals, their sentences were upheld, and they are currently serving their respective terms in prison. This is Elise Ortiz Nez, facing charges of felony murder and first-degree child abuse in Michigan for the death of 4-year-old Giovanni Majos, the son of his then-girlfriend. Kent County deputies responded to the Gaines Township trailer where Neves was supervising multiple children under 11. Giovanni was found lifeless on the kitchen floor, and an autopsy revealed internal bleeding from an abdominal tear, indicative of adult-inflicted trauma, not consistent with that of a child. Now in court, Ortiz Nez denied any wrongdoing. The prosecutors maintained a different stance, and the medical examiner confirmed that the injuries weren't accidental.
The degree and the location and the number of injuries was remarkable. In my opinion, this injury is inflicted with blunt force from an adult individual.
The defense disagreed and even suggested that perhaps the injuries were caused by other children. Surprisingly, the mother of the child stood with Ortiz Nez.
I'm going to continue to say I will take a lie detector test to prove that I never abused any of Sonia's kids or never abused Giovanni and never intentionally meant to hurt Giovanni but to help him.
In the end, Judge Mark Trusock strongly condemned Ortiz Neves's actions.
You can claim your innocence, but I sat over this trial and I carefully listened to all the testimony, and the jury verdict was clearly correct in this matter. There is no question whatsoever that you committed this murder and that you beat this little boy to death. You had put cigarettes out on this poor little child. There was evidence of that from the pictures.
Ortiz Nez did something crazy in the courtroom.
Of a belt buckle.
Man, I ain't gonna let you sit here and say no crazy shit about me, man. No, man, because he's saying shit I don't even know, man.
Sir, anybody says anything back there, right?
Afterward, he was brought in, and Judge Mark handed down a life sentence with an additional 80 to 150 years for first-degree child abuse.
Lowest form of human life that I've been able to observe or see. You are a monster, and quite frankly, you are evil. What you did was sickening and disgusting. We're done. Take him to prison, please.
But the story didn't conclude there. 6 months later, the victim's mother found herself back in court.
My first charge is perjury. I lied under oath for a man who I thought loved and cared for me. Failure to protect my children and blaming a sibling on a sibling. And I have to live with the fact that I failed my children. Your Honor, what you decide to give me is nothing compared to what I have been through.
She was sentenced to 5 to 10 years behind bars. Eileen Waros committed a string of murders while working as a prostitute along Florida highways from 1989 to 1990. She fatally and robbed 7 of her male clients, but her defense claimed a unique twist, arguing that these acts were in self-defense.
You sabotaged my society, and the cops, and the system. A woman got executed. It was used for books and movies.
And that's a hell of a lot of men I went through before the next jerk came along and I used protection.
It was self-defense.
Yeah.
Did you kill those 7 men?
I killed them, I didn't murder them.
Explain the difference to me.
Okay. Is first degree and intent, and is something you have to do in defense.
So you're saying that all 7 of those homicides were justifiable?
In my belief, yes.
Eileen Waros faced a traumatic upbringing. Her father was incarcerated at her birth, her mother abandoned her and her brother when she was just 4 years old, and she suffered abuse from her grandfather and his friend. At 14, she became pregnant and had to relinquish her baby, eventually leaving school. Waros went on a killing spree, targeting men aged 40 to 65. Her reign of terror ended when she was arrested in 1991 due to an outstanding warrant. Her friend and lover, Moore, collaborated with the police, leading to Warnos's confession and subsequent testimony against her.
We were sitting on the floor watching TV, and she just come out and said, I have something to tell you. And I asked her what, and she said that she had killed a man that day.
At first, during interrogation, Waros denied being responsible for her actions. However, after spending a decade on death row, she changed her mind.
I robbed him and I killed him as cold as ice. And I'd do it again too. And I know I'd kill another person because I've hated humans for a long time. There's no sense in keeping you alive because I just would absolutely again. I've got too much anger, too much hatred in me.
Let's say the cops were following you.
Yeah.
Let's say they were following you and they did everything that you're saying they did. Nonetheless, you killed 7 men.
Yes,
and I'm asking you, what got you to kill 7 men?
And I'm telling you because the cops let me keep them, Nick. Don't you get it?
I am sorry that my acts of self-defense ended up in court like this, but I take full responsibility for my actions. It was them or me. I am sorry for all the pain that my actions have caused. I am prepared to if you say it is necessary.
I sentence you in case number 91-463 to for the murder of Troy Burris.
Thank you. Probably see, I'll be up in heaven while y'all rotting in hell.
Okay, there will be an automatic appeal. You have the right to an appeal.
May your wife and kids get
I would ask that you would appoint his office.
After spending years on Florida's death row, she was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002. Meet Derek Wright, who's facing a speeding charge in a Louisville, Kentucky courtroom. Initially, the atmosphere seems calm, but things take a turn when Judge Sarah Michael Nicholson notices something in Wright's paperwork.
Some of the best chili I've ever
Deep fried bacon fry?
Yeah. Take it fried up and then kind of crumble it, and then you put it in.
Bacon makes everything better.
As he attempts to leave, the judge stops him. It comes to light that Wright has an active warrant related to domestic violence, something Wright disputes as a mistake.
Whoa, where are you going?
Where you going? No, not the restaurant. No, have a seat. Okay. So I can't go to the restaurant? Okay. Well, can I make a call to my mom? In a minute.
You can do it.
The case got dismissed.
We're verifying it.
I went to court for that Tuesday. It was dismissed.
Sir,
Okay, just say.
I need you to calm down.
We always verify. Yeah, but
If it's dismissed, you're good. If not, I'm gonna take you into custody.
I need to call my mama if I'm gonna get arrested because this is something new to me because this is the only thing that I was supposed to go to court for.
The real surprise doesn't come from the crime, but from Wright's astonishing conduct during the sentencing. Once the warrant's validity is confirmed, deputies step forward to apprehend Wright, who requests an opportunity to contact his mother.
Unserved, so it's still good.
Okay.
Okay. Sir, you need to calm down, okay? They're gonna go ahead, they're gonna execute this. They'll let you take some time to call your mom. Just stay quiet, don't say anything, okay?
While they try to lead him to a spot for the call, he resists, and a struggle ensues.
Thank you.
The deputies subdued Wright, and when he continued to resist, one of them resorted to using a taser, causing Wright to scream. Eventually, they managed to bring him under control and escort him away. Fortunately, neither Wright nor the deputy suffered serious injuries, although the officer's glasses were broken during the scuffle. Wright faced charges of third-degree assault, resisting arrest, criminal mischief, and disorderly conduct. He pleaded guilty to the assault charge and was sentenced to a 3-year probation period. The other charges, including the initial speeding offense, were dropped. This is 25-year-old Michael Sykes, confronting numerous charges such as murder and robbery following a gruesome incident at a Staten Island hotel. Suspecting his girlfriend, Cutler, of communication with an ex-boyfriend, Sykes stole her cell phone during a heated argument. The subsequent day, he viciously assaulted Cutler and her 3 daughters. Regrettably, only one of them survived. In the courtroom, Cutler's sister found it difficult to contain her emotions.
We implore you not to let Rebecca down as you consider the sentence. The request of the family is that the maximum penalty for the crime for which the defendant was convicted be imposed.
The judge also had some strong words for Michael.
You failed as a husband, you failed as a father, you failed as a human being. In my opinion, based on what you did, you do not deserve to ever see the light of day.
Then, the judge reads the sentence.
First degree, for Deanna Cutler and the others named therein, is a sentence of life without parole.
It must be a relief for the Cutler family that justice was served for her and her daughters. Meet Ricardo Richard Leyva Munoz Ramirez, infamous as the Night Stalker, who wreaked havoc in California from June 1984 to August 1985.
Ramirez's whole trip was to hide in a tree or hide behind a fence and watch his victims at nighttime and wait into the wee hours of the night. And then, while they slept, creep in and kill them.
Ramirez experienced a traumatic and abusive childhood, setting the stage for his disturbing interests. Immersed in Satanism and the occult, fueled by cocaine, he committed a series of horrifying crimes. For 14 months, the greater Los Angeles area, and later the San Francisco Bay Area, were paralyzed with fear due to the brutality of his actions, even shocking seasoned police officers.
He took a woman in her 60s and s***ed her to death with his foot, leaving an imprint of a shoe on the side of her face. From that to just executing somebody upon walking into a room after he entered a house. He strangled, he used a ligature, he used a tire iron on a young girl.
Ramirez's especially gruesome crimes took place in April 1984, involving the murder of a 9-year-old girl in San Francisco. Ramirez's rampage was halted when bystanders identified, pursued, and captured him in East Los Angeles. The enraged crowd subjected him to a severe beating before the police intervened.
What have you been arrested for? Sit up. How long ago? What's your name?
Despite the brutality of the murder, Ramirez's courtroom justification is even more shocking. He was convicted of 13 counts of murder, yet throughout the trial, he displayed no remorse for his heinous crimes.
You don't understand. understand me. You are not expected to. You are not capable of it. I am beyond your experience. I am beyond good and evil. Legions of the night breed. Repeat not the errors of Nightcrawler and show no mercy. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. That's it.
While in custody, Ramirez initially professed ignorance about the motives behind his relentless killings. However, he later offered some insights into what drove his actions.
Our desires, where if I didn't give in to them, I would be crushed by them. I believe in the evil in human nature. This is a wicked world. And in a wicked world, wicked people are born. I'm not going to blame society, my race, or people, or anything. It is up to the individual like myself to keep on knocking on whatever door they want to get into. A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe, poverty, abuse. These things contribute to a person's frustration and anger. At some point in life, he explodes.
On June 7, 2013, Ramirez succumbed to complications related to B-cell lymphoma in a California hospital. Vashon Flowers, who's facing murder charges, engaged in a dispute related to smoking with his wife. This disagreement escalated, resulting in him fatally killing his wife, Jamie Thomas Flowers. Now, during the court proceedings, the victim's daughter recounts the events that unfolded.
He was irritable and said that he was a grown man. If he wanted to buy cigarettes, he would buy cigarettes. Got down on the ground and started choking my mother. Actually, I heard, "You don't have to do this, Vashon. Please don't do this. You don't have to do this." And then I heard shots.
During the sentencing, London Thomas, the son of the victim, struggled to contain his emotions and attacked Vashon. Vashon was ultimately sentenced to life in prison. Daniel Nicholson, a father of 4, is facing weapons charges and has been out on bail awaiting trial. The hearing aims to decide whether he should remain released on bail before his trial. However, instead of displaying remorse for his crimes, things take an unexpected turn during the hearing. When Magistrate Sue O'Connor announced her ruling, Nicholson had some questions of his own.
I revoke bail. I revoke bail. No, you can stop.
What's going on with that?
Before he can get a response from his attorney, Magistrate O'Connor interrupts the conversation. It's evident that the ruling is not in Nicholson's favor, and he is about to be remanded into custody.
What's going on with that?
Take a seat. Take a seat.
Miss, please, miss.
Please, miss. I'll tell you what please, miss is.
In a seemingly desperate moment, Nicholson takes matters into his own hands, causing an escalation of chaos within the courtroom. Officers work to restrain Nicholson and thwart any attempt he makes to escape. Eventually, a team of officers successfully overpowers Nicholson, preventing him from reaching the exit. Later on, Nicholson confesses to being under the influence of crystal meth during the escape attempt, attributing his actions to a state of fear. He enters a guilty plea for attempting to escape custody and causing harm to emergency workers. As a consequence, he receives a 21-month prison sentence, with the potential for parole after 1 year. Furthermore, Nicholson acknowledges guilt in the initial weapons charge, resulting in a $320 fine. Aaron Andrade, a 25-year-old drug dealer, is facing sentencing for his involvement in the overdose death of 29-year-old Kristen Coutu. Coutu, who had recently left a drug treatment facility due to insurance limitations, arranged to purchase drugs from Andrade. Unfortunately, the heroin provided by Andrade was unknowingly laced with a fatal dose of fentanyl, leading to Coutu's tragic death. Andrade entered a no-contest plea to second-degree murder as part of a plea agreement, which resulted in the dismissal of 2 additional drug charges against him in connection to Coutu's death. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Kristen Rogers listens to the prosecution's submissions regarding the evidence they have against Andrade.
It would have proven that what the defendant really sold Kristen Coutu was nearly pure fentanyl, a controlled substance like heroin or morphine, hundreds of times more toxic than heroin.
Coutu's mother then gives an emotional impact statement recalling the devastating moment when she was informed about her daughter's fatal overdose.
Cranston police officer standing there. All I could say repeatedly was, "Please don't tell me my daughter is dead. Please don't tell me my daughter is dead."
After the impact statements, Andrade takes the stand and delivers an unexpected statement that catches the court by surprise.
A lot of people, including her family and my family, because we're all going through this.
Andrade, unlike many convicts, accepts full responsibility for his actions, expressing genuine remorse and acknowledging the immense pain he has caused the Coutu family. Despite his repentance, Judge Rogers sentences him to 40 years, with 20 to serve.
This defendant stands before you indicted on, among others, the count of murder for, as the state alleges, delivering a substance containing fentanyl, which Kristen Coutu.
Despite his evident remorse, Andrade displays no visible reaction to the sentence, calmly accepting his fate. This is Shannon Fox Hamlin, a 42-year-old facing allegations of violating her probation terms. A bond revocation hearing is underway in Williamsburg, Kentucky, to determine her fate. Besides her concerning offense, her behavior in court takes an even more peculiar turn. While at the podium, Hamlin tells Judge Paul Winchester that she is being represented by probably the most famous person in the world.
And who's representing you today?
I'm represented by Jesus Christ.
Now, while Jesus Christ is renowned for his acts of goodwill, he's not a licensed member of the Kentucky State Bar. Consequently, the judge promptly recommends the assistance of the Public Defender Office.
Appoint Mr. Fendale to represent you today.
I don't want Mr. Fendale. Well, I have that right.
You don't get to choose. You don't get to choose.
Jesus is going to represent through me. I do not want legal counsel. I have the best counsel, Adam Howard, I've ever represented.
Okay, all right. So what do you want to say?
I want to say that I have lived hard, loved hard, played hard, but I've been saved and applied the blood. I'm pardoned through Jesus Christ, okay? Okay, I have stumbled and I have failed many times, and mercy's rained from that bench. Not because I deserved it, but because I'm sure somebody prayed, okay? I wanted to taste salvation and play over here too. I was riding the fence between me and you. God gave me a choice, and it's life or I kid you not. Do I look like the person that stood before you in August? Do I? I'm humble. I'm going to walk to shame.
Judge Winchester has heard enough and tries to steer the conversation back to the allegations against her. Hamlin faces accusations of not meeting the reporting requirements with her probation officer and testing positive for methamphetamine on December 9, 2016. She refutes the claims and asserts that she is protected by the blood of Jesus.
Allegation is you failed to report to probation and parole.
Okay, sir. I have nothing in this world.
All I need is an answer.
No.
Did you go? Okay.
I went to probation, yes I did. But the next 2 times I didn't have no right.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Yes.
On December the 9th, 2016, you were given a drug test and you were positive for methamphetamine. And that was confirmed by a lab.
Saved by the blood.
Yes or no? Do you acknowledge that?
I acknowledge I'm saved by the blood.
Despite the probation officer's testimony, Hamlin persistently injects her religious beliefs into the proceedings. The judge affirms the accuracy of her drug test results, but she remains unwavering in her convictions. As the argument escalated, the judge asked for her to be removed from the courtroom. However, she resisted and was eventually removed from the courtroom.
You take her for me, please. Motion is sustained.
Thank you. Sir, no, I have the right to speak, okay? Now, my wife is at I'm going to speak, please. No, I'm going to speak to this judge. No, I'm going to speak to you right now, Your Honor. My life is at stake. I'll die in prison.
Come on, yeah.
I have been right to I won't go. I won't go. No. Get me.
You need to go. You don't
no,
want
I'm
to do
not.
that to you, okay?
No shit, I won't.
You need to go.
Mr. Winchester, please. I want my family back. I've changed. No, they need Jesus like he said they had you on the house. I'm doing. Jesus, you said I wouldn't have gone. I don't think you know.
But it doesn't stop there. In the hallway, Hamlin allegedly kicks one of the bailiffs, causing injury, and persists in resisting arrest. Consequently, she faces new charges, including contempt of court, second-degree assault, resisting arrest, and second-degree disorderly conduct. Ultimately, her bond is revoked, leading to an 8-year sentence in a Kentucky prison for her conduct during the hearing. In November 2022, Johnny Andrade finds himself in the North Justice Center, facing charges stemming from a wild police chase. The incident commenced on an ordinary evening when Fullerton police attempted to pull over the 32-year-old suspect. Instead of complying, Andrade chose to accelerate, initiating a high-speed chase through Fullerton's streets. The pursuit escalated as Andrade maneuvered through traffic, narrowly avoiding collisions with unsuspecting bystanders. Multiple law enforcement agencies collaborated to apprehend him, extending the chase across 2 counties. Andrade's reckless actions during the chase endangered the lives of both innocent drivers and law enforcement officers. With speeds reaching nearly 100 miles per hour, The stolen vehicle he was driving sustained damage from various collisions. Unfazed by the challenges, Anondo abandoned the first stolen vehicle, burglarized a Whittier residence, and made off with a truck belonging to a family operating a landscaping business. After an intense 1.5-hour pursuit, Ancondo's stolen truck collided with a sheriff's cruiser, and his vehicle came to a halt. Law enforcement officers swiftly subdued Anondo, employing less than lethal force to bring him into custody. After the pursuit, the Orange County District Attorney's Office leveled several felony charges against Anondo. During his initial court appearance, rather than entering a plea, Anondo waved and smiled at news cameras, projecting a nonchalant demeanor. The extensive list of charges brought against Anondo encompassed evading a police officer, driving against traffic, 3 counts of hit and run with property damage, brandishing a weapon, and possession of methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia. All misdemeanors. If found guilty on all charges during the trial, Anondo could potentially face a maximum sentence of 54 years in prison, underscoring the severity of his actions and the peril he posed to the community during the chase. Wallace Bigger, a drug lord, operated a prescription drug pipeline in Antrim County, Michigan, earning over $220,000. However, his living conditions were far from luxurious, as he resided in a camper van on his daughter's driveway. Throughout his trial, the 71-year-old vehemently proclaimed his innocence, berating his legal counsel and claiming he was framed by law enforcement. Convicted of conducting a criminal enterprise, Bigger now faces sentencing before Judge Philip Rogers, who doesn't mince words about Bigger's squalid living conditions and defiant demeanor.
You live a big lifestyle where you're sitting out next to the cement pond with the BMW parked in the driveway? No, you weren't. You lived a pretty crummy lifestyle, from time to time, in a camper in your daughter's front driveway, but it didn't stop you from being manipulative. It didn't stop you from abusing other people.
Bigger doesn't look happy as he steps up to speak, and what he says surprises everyone in the court. He keeps pretending he's innocent, complaining about his lawyer and even saying Judge Rogers is unfair, repeating his idea that the trial wasn't fair.
I believe the judge is biased, and I said from the start, Antrim County would not be a fair trial. And I did not get a fair trial. And I got a screwy lawyer.
The prosecutors dismiss his questionable statements, asserting that he was the primary pill dealer in Antrim County. They request the judge to impose the toughest sentence available.
He was the primary provider of morphine during that time period within Antrim County. He kept going back to Saginaw and was getting 800 pills a month, bringing them back here. Hopefully his sentencing at the high end of the guidelines and the consecutive nature will send a message to anybody that may want to fill that vacuum that regardless of your age, there is a consequence if you are caught trafficking this quantity of controlled substance.
Judge Rogers ultimately hands down a sentence of at least 20 years in total. This is Dale Williams, who's on trial for murder after causing a car crash that resulted in the death of his ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth Pledger Stewart, in June 2017. Williams shot her multiple times following the crash, with witnesses present. Now, the victim's daughter is ready to make a statement in court, but the victim's sons have other plans. They attacked Dale, creating chaos in the courtroom. Police had to use their tasers to restore order to the court. The court session was rescheduled, and this time, the victim's aunt had the opportunity to express her thoughts.
When we saw him, his faith, we felt it was so much emotion due to a flashback of how he just killed my niece.
In the end, Dale received a 15-year to life prison sentence. Additionally, the two brothers who caused the courtroom chaos faced legal consequences. Dale is currently serving his sentence behind bars. This is Nelson Walker, who took his court appearance to a whole new level by sporting a Dolphins jersey, the very item he allegedly stole in Miami-Dade County. Judge Ward, overseeing the case, raised an eyebrow at Walker's choice of attire. Curious, she engaged in a conversation with Walker about the Dolphins jersey he proudly wore, resulting in a rather interesting exchange.
You're charged with stealing a Dolphin jersey?
This ain't the one, young.
No?
No, ma'am.
It show on that I ain't took no jersey.
Walker insists he's innocent of the jersey theft accusations and claims that the Dolphins jersey he's rocking in court isn't the alleged stolen one. In response, the judge turns to the public defender for their take on the matter.
Public defender.
As to Mr. Walker, respectfully, Your Honor, we're going to be raising a probable cause issue.
The public defender points out a potential issue in the police report, specifically the discrepancy regarding whether 1 or 2 hats were involved in the case. Walker appears to align with the public defender's observation.
As to what?
As to this being a felony. Because the allegations are an observation of observing the defendant and co-defendant put on a dolphin hats. The officer says A and then says hats, so there's an issue as to whether it's 2 hats or 1 hat, but clearly the allegations are the co-defendant.
Considering these factors, the judge sets Walker's bond at $5,000, taking into account his extensive history of 29 prior felonies. In the subsequent weeks, Miami-Dade prosecutors opt not to pursue charges against Walker, resulting in his release. Despite this, the judge imposes a restriction, prohibiting Walker from approaching Dolphin Stadium. It seems like an unconventional yet impactful form of punishment. Michael Brady, previously convicted of attempted murder, was initially facing a 24-year prison term for shooting at a North Carolina state trooper. However, the situation took a dark turn when Brady, along with 3 other inmates, violently attacked and 4 prison workers using hammers and scissors at Pasquotank Correctional Institution in North Carolina. The violence during the attack was described as horrific, creating a scene reminiscent of a bloodbath. Contrary to expectations of remorse, Brady's behavior during the proceedings was astonishing. Prosecutors argued that he was the mastermind behind the attack and displayed no remorse for the lives lost.
We know who originated the plan. We know who led the plan. We know who put the actions in place to furtherance of the plan. That man, Michael Brady.
I stabbed him like 4 to 8 times. She was supposed to go down.
Following that, it was Brady's turn to speak.
You can ask me anything you want. I'm gonna tell the truth. How it was, whether it hurts me, whether it helps me. I don't care about that.
And sir, you don't believe you're crazy, do you?
No, I don't think I'm crazy, no.
Because your freedom meant more than their lives.
Yes. That's how I am until some big event, whether it's a state trooper, whether it's trying to escape from prison, whether it's a serious fight, whether it's whatever. Once that big event happens, all the pressure's gone.
At his sentencing, he displayed a disturbingly emotionless demeanor despite being found guilty. The jury unanimously recommended the death penalty, a sentence that the judge promptly agreed upon.
Jury unanimously recommending that the defendant be sentenced to...
Currently incarcerated in Colorado, Brady awaits his date with the death penalty. This is Jose Govea Jimenez, a convicted drug lord. Authorities reveal that Jimenez collaborated with a Mexican cartel to run a significant heroin trafficking scheme, bringing in up to 100 kilos of the drug monthly into Columbus. The investigation resulted in the seizure of 25 kilos of heroin, valued at $2.5 million. Jimenez, having pleaded guilty to 2 trafficking counts and 1 count of engaging in corrupt activity, is now at the Franklin County Courthouse for sentencing. Once a powerful figure in a Columbus drug operation, Jimenez enters the courtroom in prison-issued scrubs. Despite the downfall, he maintains a semblance of authority, giving a cold stare to the narcotics investigators present to witness the outcome of their efforts. Assistant Prosecutor Dan Stanley opens the hearing by emphasizing Jimenez's leadership role in the operation.
The ringleader of an organization that is so fear-inspiring that the people who come here from Mexico refuse to testify against it because they know as soon as they are born, their family will be in Mexico.
He also highlights the intimidating influence of the cartel, underscoring the challenges faced in securing convictions against gang members. Throughout, Jimenez remains stoic, standing rigidly with a piercing gaze into the distance. A female witness, shielded from the camera to safeguard her identity, testifies about her involvement in aiding him, storing, and transporting heroin in the Columbus area.
He was bringing me the to my house.
What kind of
Here.
How much?
1 kilo, and the last time 2 kilos.
Observe Jimenez during her testimony. You might mistake him for a statue, but upon closer inspection, you'll notice the occasional blink. The ringleader has maintained an unyielding demeanor thus far, and his absence of remorse becomes even more apparent as he speaks to the court through an interpreter.
This has been overblown.
And I apologize.
Jimenez stands and expresses a terse apology in Spanish that appears to be a struggle with each word. His translator works to convey a more human tone in English. Nevertheless, Judge Kimberly Coft remains unconvinced by his feeble expressions of regret and challenges him on his assertion that the prosecution exaggerated his accountability.
Surprised to hear you say today that your participation is overblown.
The judge issues a stern reminder, emphasizing that she had clearly communicated the statutory consequences before sentencing Jimenez to 21 years in prison. Additionally, she orders the immediate deportation of the drug lord upon his release.
I was very intentional about explaining to you the statutory requirement for conviction.
Jimenez displays no visible reaction to the prospect of being released in his late 60s. Instead, he simply exits the courtroom with a facial expression conveying disdain. In a Montgomery County courtroom, Christopher John Lebowski appears before the judge, facing charges of evading arrest and possession of a controlled substance. Lebowski, the driver of an 18-wheeler, led police on a lengthy chase through 4 different counties, displaying a blatant disregard for the safety of others on the road. The pursuit finally came to an end after 2 hours, when DPS troopers shot out several tires of the truck, forcing it to halt. Merely a day after the dangerous high-speed chase, Lebowski stood before a judge in probable cause court.
Chris, you got 2 charges, evading a motor vehicle and possession of a controlled substance.
The charges against Lebowski were severe, and the mounting evidence presented a shocking revelation. Prosecutors disclosed the disturbing truth found in the truck's cab. The courtroom held its collective breath as it was revealed that a substantial amount of drugs, specifically 13 grams of methamphetamine, had been discovered, leaving no room for doubt about Lebowski's involvement in the illicit trade. As the court proceedings unfolded, Lebowski's emotions got the better of him. He couldn't contain himself and, at one point, interrupted the bond hearing, seeking to address the judge directly, and then the judge responded to him.
More so than anybody in this room, Chris, you want to keep your mouth completely shut right now. I know you can't wait to get it out. Give it a week and you'll get to say it all.
As the court proceedings unfolded, the judge deemed Lebowski's bond at a substantial $150,000, underscoring the gravity of the charges against him. The path ahead for Lebowski remained uncertain, but one certainty emerged. The repercussions of his actions would extend far and wide. With the court appearance concluded, Lebowski now anticipates his first official court hearing in the imminent days. The public's gaze is fixed on this case, eagerly anticipating justice and the revelation of the truth. In court, 30-year-old Bass Webb faced 2 counts of attempted murder for trying to run over 2 jail employees with his car outside a Kentucky jail. This horrifying incident resulted in severe injury to one victim while the other narrowly escaped. Despite the gravity of Webb's crimes, his behavior in the courtroom was nothing short of chilling. Following his violent actions, Webb was arrested and charged. However, Judge Dixon, initially assigned to oversee the case, had to recuse herself due to her connection with the victims. The shock intensified when Webb spat on the judge during his court appearance, leading to additional charges against him. This act of disrespect left everyone, including his attorney, in disbelief. Webb's violent tendencies continued while awaiting trial, as he incited a riot among fellow inmates at the Fat County Detention Center. Despite being shot with beanbag bullets and hit with a pepper ball, Webb played a leading role in the chaos, going as far as throwing a metal telephone box at officers. These actions led to additional charges, and Webb was eventually charged with third-degree assault, resulting in a 15-year prison sentence. Later, he was convicted of 2 counts of attempted murder for the car incident, adding an extra 37 years to his sentence, bringing the total to 52 years. While in prison, Webb was implicated in an unsolved murder of an ex-girlfriend. In an effort to avoid the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the murder, receiving an additional 50-year sentence. Years later, he faced charges for the decades-old murder of another girlfriend. Despite the transformation in his appearance and demeanor during his time in prison, Webb's capacity to shock persisted. Tattoos on his head displayed chilling messages, including a hit list targeting judges, prosecutors, law enforcement, and the media. Throughout his trial, evidence unfolded the gruesome details of how he choked his girlfriend to death and buried her body. Shockingly, he remained unrepentant, even laughing during the proceedings. After a lengthy trial, the jury rendered its verdict.
You have found the defendant guilty of the offense of intentional murder.
Webb received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Willie Harmon faced charges for the shooting of Kendra Gardner on December 29, 2016, at a residence on Detroit's east side. Police reported that the 65-year-old uncle shot her in the head during a social gathering. Another woman in the house managed to disarm Harmon, who was subsequently arrested and charged with second-degree murder and felony firearm possession. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office stated that the violent incident occurred after a brief verbal altercation when Harmon became combative. He and Gardner then moved to another room, where the fatal shooting took place.
It was bad. I didn't have no intention of doing any kind of thing or whatsoever.
She did not deserve to. I want that absolutely clear. There is no reason.
But she wasn't good. But she was a good person. But when she got to drinking.
Judge Slavin commented on the testimony that indicated heavy drinking by a group of people on the night of Kendra Gardner's slaying. The judge expressed concern about Willie Harmon labeling Gardner as a bad person while she was intoxicated, seemingly attempting to justify her tragic end. Slavin discussed the evidence that revealed Harmon's drunken state that night and his defiant behavior as Gardner tried to assist him to bed. Harmon faced charges of second-degree murder and felony firearm possession. Following a guilty verdict from the jury, he was sentenced to a minimum of 12 years and a maximum of 30 years in prison. Denzel Talbert, who opened fire in Detroit's Greektown area during the summer, has been sentenced to prison. After an emotional day in court, the 22-year-old was convicted for the shooting that claimed the life of 18-year-old Martez Taylor and left another person injured. During the sentencing, Taylor's family grappled with tears, seeking an answer to the haunting question: why is it just that someone could disregard all judgment and take a life without a genuine explanation? Janique Jernigan, Taylor's niece, revealed that Talbert faced charges of involuntary manslaughter, as well as weapons and assault charges stemming from the shooting near Greektown Casino. Taylor's brother, Fadis Hopkins, reminded the judge that the cemetery is now the only place where he encounters his late brother.
Once again, going downtown Detroit to have fun, something that he doesn't do. He was just...
You can forgive me, and I will continue to pray for your family. I hope the Lord will lead you and guide you in the right directions with your heart.
Taylor's family describes him as a decent young man who hadn't even turned 19. They say that the man who took his life has no remorse for what he did. Just before sentencing, Talbert apologized to Taylor's family, saying, "I hope you can forgive me, and I will continue to pray for your family. I hope the Lord will lead you and guide you in the right direction." In the end, the judge sentenced Talbert to 17 years in prison and reminded him that the pain he caused the family would never go away. 18-year-old Brendan Wazinski is currently charged with impersonating a police officer at the George Layton Criminal Courthouse in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Approximately 6 months prior to the court proceedings, Wazinski was found driving an unmarked car equipped with a police siren. Upon pulling over a driver for speeding, Albuquerque police officer Danny Anzo arrived on the scene, noticing something odd about the situation, leading him to investigate further.
You gotta talk to him for a minute. Who do you work for?
Early Country Club.
Oh, okay.
I know, I'm under-equipped.
Okay, do you have an ID with you?
I mean, this is all I got on me. Like I said, I'm under-equipped. I was just heading over there to the courthouse.
To the courthouse for what?
To get my crap.
Anzo interrogated Wazinski regarding his identity and equipment, noticing inconsistencies in his narrative. Despite Wazinski's assertion of being under-equipped and en route to the courthouse, Anzo remained skeptical.
And I'm not here to mess with you, man. It's just the thing is, yeah, he was speeding, dude. You could have called it in, and because if you get into you're
right.
All right, man.
I understand.
Right.
This, for starters, I know this looks really bad.
Right.
This looks really bad. This screams whacker.
Right. How long you been on?
About 3 years.
Okay. I've been on for like 13 years. All right, so I'm not saying I'm perfect, but you need to be a little bit more careful, all right?
Observing the unusual nature of the situation, Officer Anzo decided to call for a supervisor to join him at the scene. Subsequently, he took Wazinski into custody, placing him in the back of his police cruiser.
Do you have anything on you, man? Any weapons or anything?
Keys.
Okay.
Keys and wallet.
That's fine. Just have a seat, all right?
All right.
At this point, Wazinski decided to come clean, confessing that he was not a genuine police officer. He admitted to procuring police equipment, including a counterfeit police siren, through online purchases.
Can I talk to you real quick?
Yeah, give me 1 second. What's up, man?
All right. I'm just gonna be straight up honest with you. I'm not a cop.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just gonna be.
Where'd you get that badge from?
I bought it offline.
Okay. Do me a favor. Stay in here, okay? For a second.
Officer Anzo discussed the situation with a sergeant, and considering the gravity of the situation, Wazinski was officially charged with impersonating an officer. Subsequently, he was taken into custody and transported to jail.
Okay, face the vehicle. At this point right now, you are being under arrest. Do you understand?
Okay.
So I need you to lean back a little bit. Thank you.
Can I please help my wife?
I'll give you, when we get to the substation, we'll give her a call, okay?
In the courtroom, Wazinski entered a plea of no contest. The judge, considering the circumstances, sentenced him to 1 year of probation. The conditions of his probation included restrictions on possessing firearms or handcuffs and undergoing a psychiatric evaluation.
Can't carry any firearms, deadly weapons, handcuffs, anything like that, because I do not want any kind of reoffense on this kind of case. Does that make sense?
Yes, sure.
However, Wazinski breached his probation by failing to complete the required psychiatric evaluation.
Try the best I can, Your Honor. I mean, I have honestly a lot going on right now, and it's stressful, but I will try my hardest to get it done.
Okay, so just to let you know, we all have a lot going on, and it is very stressful for everyone, but this is very important, and I'm not going to give you longer than that.
After a thorough discussion of his situation, the judge granted Wazinski a 2-week extension to fulfill the psychiatric evaluation requirement. In the end, Wazinski successfully completed the evaluation, avoiding jail time. Michael Montgomery, a Detroit emergency medical technician, faced the consequences of his actions in court. Kelly Adams, the victim who suffered a vicious attack with a box cutter while on duty, addressed the court during Montgomery's sentencing. She described him as a slayer and psychopath who attempted to harm 2 medics simply doing their jobs. Adams presented a photograph of her bloodied face, captured after the attack, to illustrate the severity of the injuries. In her emotional statement, she conveyed how Montgomery not only physically maimed her, but also left her with lasting scars and mental health challenges that will persist throughout her life.
I'm a medic, and my life matters, and that's why I'm here today.
No, not at all.
The police did drop the ball, and so did the prosecutor, and so did the judge.
When you took her and killed her in that alley, you mutilated her.
Montgomery, age 31 and hailing from Detroit, entered a guilty plea for various crimes, including the assault on the EMTs and offenses in 3 cases dating back to 2005 and 2006. His criminal history involved the kidnapping and exploitation of 2 women, as well as the killing of Dante Toya White, a teenager whose life was tragically cut short and discovered in a Detroit alley on January 1st, 2006. Wayne County Circuit Judge Michael Hathaway handed down a stern sentence, condemning Montgomery to serve 40 to 80 years in prison for each of the 4 cases. Notably, these sentences will run concurrently. During the hearing, Montgomery was handcuffed and seemingly detached and remained silent. Some criminals, such as Charles Crosty, exhibit a cold and unapologetic demeanor even when facing significant prison sentences. Crosty stands before the Clement County Court for sentencing on charges of drug trafficking and corruption. The 35-year-old was convicted on 12 counts after being apprehended in possession of $5,000 worth of heroin and cocaine intended for distribution on the streets of New Richmond. Crosty, with a criminal history dating back to the age of 14, is noted for establishing his drug-dealing empire merely 4 months after his release from a prior prison term for trafficking heroin. The hearing commences with Assistant Prosecutor Darren Miller attempting to convey to Judge Thomas Herman the profound impact Crosty's actions have had on the community.
It's bad enough, but laced with fentanyl, it becomes a game of Russian roulette.
And individuals like Charles Crosty provide the weapon, they provide the bullet, and they spin the chamber, pointing at the addict's head, and all the addict has to do is pull the trigger. That's who Charles Crosty is.
Authorities reveal that during the defendant's illicit activities, there was a surge in overdoses and drug-related deaths attributed to the prevalence of fentanyl-laced heroin on the streets. As the court delves into the details of Crosty's drug-dealing operations, the proceedings take a shocking turn when Police Chief Ran Harvey discloses how Crosty coerced addicts into selling his products, leaving the courtroom in disbelief.
They would have black eyes or their face would be swollen. And I would ask them, how did this occur? And they would frankly tell me that Charles Crosty and his associates would beat them.
Crosty not only fueled his customers' addictions, but also resorted to brutal tactics, physically assaulting them until they agreed to sell drugs on the streets for him. Unfazed by the severity of his reprehensible actions laid bare in court, Crosty casually rolls his eyes as Harvey recounts the disturbing details. Indifferent to the courtroom proceedings, he maintains a vacant stare as Judge Herman enumerates his extensive criminal record and hands down a substantial sentence of 20 years and 9 months in prison. In his typical fashion, Crosty doesn't react to the substantial sentence, bringing a sense of relief to the residents of New Richmond, who can now expect a safer community for an extended period. David Hall, a self-proclaimed sovereign citizen, a follower of a belief system asserting exemption from certain laws, faces charges of driving under the influence and driving with a suspended license. The courtroom drama unfolds in Broward County, where Judge John Hurley oversees Hall's bond hearing. However, the real surprise comes when Hall unleashes his unconventional views. As Judge Hurley begins reading the charges, Hall can't resist interrupting with his unique perspective.
Mr. Hall, DUI, expired driver's license.
Good morning, Judge. Sir, I haven't said for the court how I'm appearing today.
Hall informs the judge that he hasn't clarified how he's appearing in court, but the judge informs Hall that he will address that matter shortly.
Hey, I'm not asking you yet. Just give me a moment, all right? I need to look at your record.
Hall's strange legal approach continues, and he identifies himself as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Sir, today I'm appearing as the agent and settler for David Hall.
Okay. Could you get Mr. Hall for me then, sir? Where is he?
I'd go by that name, sir. My name sounds exactly like the defendant's, and I'm here to settle that matter today.
The judge asks if Hall and David Hall are the same person, and Hall responds by asserting that he's an individual, not a person, and differentiates himself from David Hall.
So are you and David Hall one and the same person?
I'm not a person, I'm an individual. David Hall is a person, I am a private individual.
Maintaining his composure, Judge Hurley remains unfazed by Hall's legal maneuvering. Judge Hurley decides to set the bond while sarcastically acknowledging Hall's multiple self-identifications.
May I say something else for the record, sir?
Go ahead, sir.
I appear here today as the settler, agent, not the person, but the individual. And I don't think I should you understand the difference between a person and an individual.
And you're the individual, but you're not the person. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. I'm going to write that down.
The judge points out that the new charges against Hall constitute a violation of his initial bond conditions. Consequently, regardless of Hall's self-referential distinctions, release from jail will only be possible if he can meet the bond amount.
Here's what we're going to do. The settler, the agent, the individual, and maybe even the person, David Hall, has been charged with DUI. So today, the court's going to set the settler, the agent, the individual's bond, and even the person's bond today, $10,000, because the settler, the agent, the individual, and the person has not stopped driving, even though the settler, the agent, the individual, and the person continues to drive without a driver's license.
May I post bond, sir?
Finally, it's Judge Hurley's turn to play games.
Well,
is there any other?
Are you asking me as the settler, the agent, the individual, or are you asking me as the person?
Sir, I'm asking as the individual appearing before you today, the opportunity.
Who are you speaking on behalf of right now?
Sir, I don't understand that question. I believe that you're trying to confuse me now. I'm not the person, sir.
Okay, when
I am
you
not
see the person,
person,
David Hall, tell him he's not leaving jail either, all right? We'll have a nice day.
Despite Hall's unconventional approach to identity and the law, his bond is fixed at $10,000, and he is denied bail due to the violation of his pre-existing bond conditions. Next, we have 25-year-old Tristan Lamoureux facing charges for first-degree murder in Utah. On August 23, 2009, Tristan shot his wife, 19-year-old Misty Lamoureux, in their house, leading to his eventual arrest. Now, in court, Misty's brother, Jason Wilson, steps up to the podium to deliver a victim impact statement, but not before giving Tristan the death stare. Despite the gravity of Tristan's crimes, his behavior in the courtroom is nothing short of shocking. While Jason shares the impact of the murder, Tristan seems unfazed, nonchalantly rocking back and forth in his chair. After addressing the judge for a few minutes, Jason shifts his focus to his sister's killer. However, Tristan's utter lack of remorse infuriates him, and he's determined to let him know exactly how he feels. The deputies were quick to intervene, preventing any real harm. After the chaos, the officers managed to restore order. In the end, Tristan was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. We've got Michael Madison, a serial killer facing a slew of charges, including 3 counts of murder in Ohio from 2012 to 2013. He took the lives of 3 women before the law caught up with him. As he gears up for his preliminary hearing, Michael starts to grasp the enormity of the crimes he's committed.
Mr. Madison, I'm going to read to you the nature of the charges against you and summarize each one for you, as well as giving you the potential penalties. I know you've had a chance to speak with counsel. Is that correct, sir? Yes. All right. In the first charge, you're charged with aggravated in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.01. It states that on or about the 22nd day of July, you did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female while committing another felony. The offense was committed 1 week to 9 months prior to the finding of the body. That is a Jane Doe. The second murder is the same date, on or about the 22nd day of July. Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an Angela Deskins while committing another felony. The offense was committed 3 weeks or a few weeks prior to the finding of the body. And then there's a third charge. On or about the 22nd day of July, Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female while committing another felony. The offense was committed 1 week to 1 month prior to the finding of the body. All of those are felonies of the first degree because they are aggravated. They are punishable by a possible death or life in prison and a $100,000 fine. You understand that?
Yes. When Van Terry, the father of one of the victims, steps up to address the judge, he turns to speak directly to Michael. That's when the real shocker hits. Michael unleashes his madness in the courtroom by smirking at Van Terry, throwing everything into chaos. After a while, the police managed to restore order, and the proceedings resumed. Now, it's time for the jury to deliver their decision. Following the jury's recommendation, Judge Nancy McDonnell reads the sentence.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings. It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Shealy, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Terry to your apartment for your depraved purposes. Upon consideration of the relevant evidence, the testimony exhibits admitted in mitigation, it is a judgment of this court that the aggravated circumstances of course of conduct, felony kidnapping, felony murder, of which the defendant was convicted, outweigh the mitigating factors by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant Michael Madison on counts 1, 4, and 7.
After the sentencing, the families of the victims shared their feelings. Michael Madison is still awaiting his death in prison. This is Roshan Johnson, and this is his brother, Marquez Johnson. The siblings from Jacksonville are facing sentencing before Duval County Judge R. Anthony Salem after being jointly tried and found guilty of illicit substance trafficking and possession charges. Their arrests followed a police raid on a trap house on the east side of Jacksonville, and the charges carry drug enhancements as both men were recognized as leaders of the 1200 Out East gang. Witness the brotherly exchange as Marquez nods to Roshan before the sentencing. Members of the Johnson family take the stand to request leniency, emphasizing that the 2 men have a total of 7 children.
I often think about the things I could have done different as a parent. I know my sons could have had a better outcome in life.
And he's a family man?
He is.
And do you feel he's a good father?
He's a great father. Your Honor, I pray and ask the true merciful I pray that there are some resources to help them grow.
Then, the brothers address the judge.
I don't know what kind of sentence you will hand out today, but I would ask that you be lenient towards me. I have a beautiful family, which includes 4 kids and a stepchild. I am not a bad person. I'm not a monster. I'm not a gamer. Just a human being who made mistakes.
Vashon throws himself at the mercy of Judge Salem, portraying himself as a man who has made mistakes. Similarly, Marquez denies any connection to gang activity.
I am not labeled as a menace, an animal, or a gang member or in my community or anywhere else. And I just want to say I'm sorry to my family once again for putting me through this situation and letting them down.
Prosecutors remain unconvinced, contending that the Johnson brothers had plenty of opportunity to clean up their act, but continued engaging in gang-related activities.
They had the opportunity to better their lives after serving 3 years in the Florida State Prison, and they came back out and continued doing the same pattern of criminal activity that they had been arrested so many times before for. They even moved out of their community. But instead of staying out of their community and getting jobs, the court has heard nothing from any of these witnesses about legal jobs that they had. They provided for their families financially, but how are they doing that? By selling drugs.
The brothers stand shoulder to shoulder, awaiting their fate. With the futures of both men on the line, Judge Salem faces a weighty decision. The sentence he delivers leaves the courtroom in shock.
You're adjudicated guilty, sentenced to 30 years Florida State Prison, with 581 days credit.
While the family members of the men may be distressed, the brothers appear relatively unfazed by their 3-decade sentence. Vashon casually waves farewell to his family without displaying any hint of sorrow as he is escorted from the courtroom. This is Robert Lloyd Schellenberg, apprehended for trafficking illicit substances in China. State prosecutors in China assert that Schellenberg tried to transport 222 kilograms of illegal substances from Dalian, a city in Liaoning province, to Australia. Upon discovering that his translator had tipped off Chinese authorities about his drug transportation, the Canadian man fled and boarded a plane bound for Thailand. However, he was subsequently arrested during a stopover at an airport in the Guangdong province. Despite asserting his innocence as an unsuspecting tourist framed by a drug dealer, Schellenberg received a 15-year prison sentence. He appealed the verdict and was granted a retrial, which occurred a few months later. In the second trial, facing accessory criminal charges, the prosecution took an assertive stance, arguing that Schellenberg played a significant and essential role in the drug trafficking operation. Unluckily for him, the retrial coincided with the arrest of Meng Wanzhou, chief financial officer of Huawei, in Canada on charges of bank fraud. This event triggered diplomatic tensions, and it appears that Schellenberg became a pawn in the diplomatic chess match between China and Canada. Once again declared guilty, Schellenberg likely regrets not maintaining a low profile after his initial 15-year sentence. Judge Chu Chunhua, presiding over the case, delivers an unambiguous and harsh verdict, sentencing Schellenberg to death. In a rare and perhaps politically motivated move, the sentencing spectacle is broadcasted on Chinese state media, widely seen as a potential message to Canadian authorities. Schellenberg, visibly shocked and devastated, grapples with the weight of the judge's decision. Speculation arises that the death sentence is intended to exert pressure on Canada in the context of the Meng Wanzhou case. Despite Schellenberg's subsequent appeal against the death sentence, the court rejects his application. Meanwhile, Meng Wanzhou is eventually released and permitted to return to China. As of 2024, Schellenberg remains incarcerated in a Chinese prison, facing the grim prospect of execution. Michelle McDonald, the attorney representing the mother in a child custody hearing case in Hastings, Minnesota, confronts the court reporter on the second day of the trial. McDonald accuses the court reporter of inaccuracies in recording the previous day's testimony, asserting that she'll take charge if the court reporter cannot fulfill her duties. To emphasize her point, McDonald takes out her phone and snaps a photo of the courtroom. This grabs the courtroom deputy's attention, who tells McDonald that taking photos is a no-go in the district courtroom and seizes her camera. Although there's some initial tension, the hearing eventually continues. However, during a later break, deputies approach McDonald and hand her a contempt citation for breaking the no photography rule. McDonald gets escorted to a holding area, but refuses to cooperate or share her personal details. Consequently, she gets taken into custody. In an unusual twist, she ends up handcuffed to a wheelchair, a move usually reserved for violent offenders. Despite her predicament, McDonald stays surprisingly composed as she's wheeled back to the courtroom. However, she chooses not to engage with Judge David Johnson or present evidence for her client. After the proceedings, McDonald swiftly files a federal civil rights lawsuit against Judge Johnson and county personnel, alleging mistreatment during her courtroom appearance and subsequent 36-hour detainment. Unfortunately, this legal action doesn't go in McDonald's favor. Instead, she faces her own set of consequences: a 60-day suspension and 2 years of probation for multiple reasons, including consistently talking over Judge Johnson and taking an unauthorized photo in the courtroom. Things take a turn for the worse when the Minnesota Supreme Court steps in, indefinitely suspending McDonald's law license. This decision comes as a result of her false accusations against Judge Johnson, which were viewed as undermining his integrity in the original case. Joey Watts, the defendant in a case facing charges of aggravated assault and felony possession of a weapon at the Grant County Courthouse in Sheridan, Arkansas, is accused of threatening a woman with a weapon at his residence. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere seems relaxed, with no officers in sight. Watts, along with his attorney and others, engages in casual conversation, possibly checking their smartphones. The jury is currently deliberating the firearm possession charge. However, there's a significant twist. Watts has been found guilty of the assault charge, indicating a likely prison sentence. Despite the severity of Watts's crimes, his behavior in the courtroom is surprising. In an unexpected turn, Watts calmly exits the courthouse, displaying an unusual level of composure. With no court officials in sight, he exits the courtroom calmly and heads down a stairwell. Remaining composed, he reaches the ground floor and gestures towards something or someone. Seemingly indifferent to the situation, he casually walks towards the main entrance, leaving the courthouse without any hindrance. Outside, Watts quickens his pace and starts running, visibly relishing his newfound freedom. However, his moment of triumph is short-lived as the jury returns with a guilty verdict on the weapons charge. Watts is apprehended by the police the following day. The plot thickens when it's disclosed that his escape wasn't a solo act. 3 accomplices, including his brother Jesse Watts, are arrested for aiding his flight. Jesse Watts is found guilty and handed a 6-year prison sentence. Joey Watts eventually returns to court, receiving a combined 36-year sentence, 10 years for the assault charge, and 26 years for the weapons possession charge. Interestingly, no additional charges are filed against Joey Watts for his audacious escape. He becomes eligible for parole in 2025. On June 19, 2013, Jerry Wheeler, a 66-year-old man from Douglasville, was just making dinner at his River Run Drive home around 2 p.m. Everything seemed normal until Sahara Fakir, his 32-year-old neighbor, allegedly entered his house and committed a brutal act of violence. Jerry's son, Officer Michael Wheeler, a deputy sheriff, called the Douglas County Sheriff's Department after discovering his father's lifeless body. It was evident that Jerry had been brutally stabbed, and the crime scene was gruesome, with blood splattered everywhere and the house in chaos. About a month later, there was a breakthrough in the case. Sahara Fakir was arrested and charged with murder, armed robbery, and burglary. The evidence against Sahara included a footprint at the crime scene that connected her to Jerry Wheeler's murder. As the community awaited justice for Jerry's heinous murder, Sahara Fakir, representing herself in court, took an unconventional and bizarre approach to her defense. She argued that the courthouse itself was cursed and demanded her immediate release.
The Masonic courthouse, I understand that. I understand that this courthouse is a cursed courthouse. Yes, I understand. Okay. And if you are judging me and you're not God-fearing, Allah will have vengeance on you, and everyone else is not God-fearing. I understand that.
When the judge asks her about her legal representation, more bizarre answers keep coming.
You have a lawyer.
Allah is my lawyer right now. He's speaking to me.
Are you going to get a lawyer?
Allah is my lawyer right now. And if you do not release me, Allah will have his vengeance on you. Like he did in 2009 when he sent that flood. It's only going to get worse.
Despite her bizarre claims, the jury needed to concentrate on the evidence presented against her. The prosecution built a strong case against Sahara Fakir, emphasizing the substantial proof pointing to her role in Jerry Wheeler's murder. The verdict was quick and conclusive. Sahara Fakir was convicted of Jerry Wheeler's murder and received a life sentence without the chance of parole. Hold on to our final clip, which is the most scariest and most creepiest one. And if you like what you saw, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our creepiest videos. A Detroit man, William Wilborn Little, was convicted by a jury in the fatal incident involving 3 other men inside a fast food restaurant. The Wayne County Prosecutor's Office announced that the 30-year-old was found guilty in circuit court on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 2 gun charges.
Honey, I can't deal with this at times. I want to just join him. I just want to be with him. This was my baby.
According to the police, 2 masked individuals approached a White Castle on Detroit's west side just after midnight. They discharged their weapon inside the restaurant and then fled on foot. Roshan Harrington, Trayvon Anthony, and Deshaun Gadsden, aged 25, 24, and 20 respectively, were pronounced deceased at the scene. Little received a life sentence for his involvement in the incident. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can stay updated with our latest videos.